Hi everyone, my name is Brittany Kirkpatrick.
And my name is Ty Whitman.
And we're the hosts of the Beyond the Narthex podcast.
A show where we sit down with members of CK Press and go beyond our narthex and take a deeper dive into the lives of our church family.
Our hope is that each episode will cultivate and encourage new conversations for you, our listeners, with our guests.
Enjoy the episode.
Welcome. Barb Stark is here with us, and we're so glad to have some time to talk to you. If you don't mind just introducing yourself, like a little bit about you, if there's anything fun that you want to share that other people at the church may not know about you, feel free to do so.
Thank you. I told Tyler last week that 2 years ago I didn't know what a podcast was, and now I are one. So it has been a long time that we've been here, and so most people know all my secrets. But when I knew that was one of the things that you were going to ask me, I thought of early in my Cougar Valley elementary school career. Our principal we always had a first day of school assembly, and he would introduce the staff, and then one year he decided that he wanted us to introduce ourselves, and he said, just share one thing outside of school that you think the kids might not know. So when it was my turn, I introduced myself and talked about what I taught, and that I had been a baseball fan for more than 50 years. And the whole auditorium went, whoa! But that was a really fun connection for me. And kids that weren't in my class, kids I hadn't had before, would stop by and say, oh, we're going to the game this weekend, or did you see that home run? And it was a great conversation topic.
That's great.
For me to have with the kids, and I really enjoyed that. So I'm really glad that you're getting the Rainiers game going, because I loved it last year. So it'll be fun to go and do that. Mert Wells and I are baseball fans, so we're baseball buddies and often text during the games, and we're going to go next week, I think, next Wednesday.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
So,
To Rainiers or the Mariners?
we're going to go to the Mariners
Okay.
game. Yeah.
Is that your team?
So it's the Mariners.
The Mariners are? Okay.
I grew up outside of St. Louis, and so it was always Cardinals.
Right.
And October was always the big year, because the Cardinals were always in contention for the World Series, and most teachers had radios in their classrooms.
Oh, the priority.
And so during the baseball playoffs, they always had to catch up and be sure we knew what the score was. So it was a big baseball town, so it was fun. Yeah.
That's fun. So was it hard to transfer your fandom from the Cardinals to the Mariners, or was that pretty seamless?
Yeah, not really, because when we first came in 1976, the Mariners were just being formed and didn't even have a name yet, and so it was kind of fun to be on the beginning of a team like that.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
Then you can truly say you are a real fan through and through. I don't follow baseball as well as like the others around me, but enough to know, like, when my Tyler wears a shirt that says maybe next year.
Oh yeah.
You're in it for the long haul, huh?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
My shirt says, I don't have that many years.
Oh no! Have you enjoyed this season though?
Yes.
It's been exciting.
It's been really fun.
Yeah.
One of the things that we try to do as a family is go down to Phoenix for spring training
Cool.
for at least a couple of games every year, and so that's always fun. Yeah.
I imagine you probably have a lot of baseball players in your family too. Maybe you played as well, or fast pitch softball?
I did, well, not fast pitch, but I just played softball. I always played softball in the street, in the neighborhood, that kind
That's
of
so
thing.
fun.
But all the boys played Little League, and of course Jim coached every every boy, every team, every sport.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was always fun.
That's cool.
I think I became a baseball fan because of my grandpa. They lived in Springfield, Illinois, and I used to go and spend a week with him every summer. And he would take me to, it wasn't even AAA, it was kids in the neighborhood, guys in the neighborhood, but they had real uniforms. But we always had an orange popsicle and a bag of peanuts. So how can you not love baseball?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
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 The popsicles don't really. You can't really find those at baseball games anymore. But the peanuts are still around.
Yeah.
Cracker
Very
Jack's still
nostalgic.
around.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
We have a book at home that just goes through Take Me Out to the Ball Game, and Noemi
Oh.
and Leaf are very into that book, and so she always says, especially when Tyler's around, just
Oh.
out to the ball game,
Oh.
and just wants to sing and dance to it. So I guess they start young, huh?
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah,
great.
that's the way to do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
creamsicle. That's
So you
fun.
mentioned you came. So you and Jim moved here in 1976.
Right.
And then how did you get involved with CK? Well, it was CKPC, Central Kitsap Presbyterian Church, which is still our name, by the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
We just rebranded. But yeah, how did you get involved with the church? And
Well,
yeah.
yeah, the Navy brought us out here because Jim was in the Civil Engineer Corps of the Navy, and
Okay.
so he was part of the group that built Bangor Base.
Okay.
Oh wow.
And so in Paulsbo, there were Catholic churches and Lutheran churches. And then one weekend, I happened to open up the paper, and here's this advertisement with John Haberlin's picture saying, Presbyterian Church coming to Silverdale. So I called, and we chatted, and they came out. John and Pam came out to our house. We still had boxes sitting in the corner of the living room unpacking, and yeah, so
Wow.
it was just really, it was the first time either of us had really been involved in starting a church.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an exciting thing to do. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was fun right from the beginning.
Yeah. And you had little kids at the time then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Pete was, let's see, he must have been almost 10 when we came. They were 5, 7, and 10.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And yeah, so yeah, they were old enough that one of the first things we did was start a youth group.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, John had a youth club in one of his churches in California.
Okay.
And so we had just a little informal gathering and talking about the fact that, you know, having youth involved was an important part of having a growing church. And he was talking about doing youth club. And so, of course, I couldn't just sit there. So I said, oh, I'll give that a shot. So he handed me this big white notebook with ABCs of youth club, and
Oh, yeah.
off we went.
Wow.
Oh my.
So you're part of the first youth ministry here at this church. That's great.
Well, we didn't have a building. We were still meeting at schools. And so Tracyton Methodist was kind enough to let us use their building on Wednesday nights.
Okay.
And so that's where we started having our first youth club, was out there.
And then at that time, were kids, it was word of mouth was the best way. Families, talking to other
Right.
families in the
Yeah,
neighborhood.
well, it was mostly church family, because by that time, yeah, we had started having Sunday services and had kids come. So yeah, it was really nice. We had they did a choir, was part of it, and we always had dinner, which was a really nice way of the adults being involved. And so kids were encouraged not to sit with their families, but everybody kind of mixed around and had a meal together, and then we did our Bible study and a craft.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the church members that did the crafts. And yeah, so it was a fun time.
You mentioned that you couldn't sit around and do nothing. So what is the kind of, for you, the driving force behind you wanting to be involved in things and have your hands in a bunch of different
To
places?
do something.
Yeah, to do
Yeah.
something, yeah.
That's kind of my MO.
Yeah.
I'm not really good about not doing. And when I was in high school, every club, every activity that came on, I just was always a part of it. And my mom used to say, you could just sit down and relax and be at home. Yeah, I could, but I didn't very often.
Yeah. Was there a
So-
drive to
Yeah.
be? What was driving that, you think?
I don't know, except that I love to read, so it's not that I don't like to sit at home and read a book. I do always have a book going, but maybe I have no siblings, so it might be the only child business where, I just wanted to do things with other people, and I was always fortunate to have generous, supportive friends that, were always part of the activities. So,
Be
yeah,
connected.
yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah. Is there? What were you gonna say? Barb?
No,
Well, I'm wondering, being so rooted in this community, the greater Kitsap community, and also this church community, what is? Because you haven't left, right? You've stayed as
right.
part of this church.
Well, we did leave for a while. Jim was, as I said, he was in the Navy when we came. So we came in 76 and we left in 79
Okay.
and went to Bermuda. That's kind of a funny story because I think it was probably February or early March. And we'd had this terrible storm. It was the one that caused the bridge to go out, the Hood Canal Bridge.
Oh.
Yeah. And we didn't have power. We were like at day 5 without power.
Wow.
And it was so cold we had frost on the inside of the windows.
Wow.
Yeah, it was not a good time. And Jim called and said, "Hey, I have some really good news. We have orders and we're going to Bermuda." And I started to cry. And I said, "No, I don't want to leave." We had never had 2 duty stations in a row. And we had a house and we just fell in love. This was home for us. And I said, "I was hoping that you would get a back-to-back tour of duty." And he said, I am married to the craziest woman in Kitsap County." He said, "You are sitting there without power, it's freezing cold, and you don't want to go to Bermuda?" So, and then from there we went back. Jim was CO of the CB training school in Port Hueneme. And then that's where he retired. So we came back in 1984 when he retired. So we'd been gone for 5 years.
Okay. That must have felt like a homecoming then.
Yes, it was. We'd kept our house,
Okay.
rented it out while we were gone. And so when we came back, there it was waiting for us.
Wow.
That's great.
Yeah, it was great. So,
Yeah. Well, that connection, that ability to be rooted in a community, I mean,
right.
is
Yeah.
that's a huge priority
Right.
in your life and your family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we did live in some really beautiful places in the world, and Bermuda is a beautiful place. The pictures you see of the turquoise water and the pink sand beaches are real. They're not painted.
Sure. Yeah.
Wow.
And we had several tours in Northern California, and we really loved. Jim went to postgraduate school in Monterey, California, and that's
lovely.
just beautiful. And we really thought that that's where we would like to settle down. And but then we came up here, and we never looked back. Never looked back at California. So, yeah.
And so you taught at what grade range?
While Jim was in the Navy, I taught everything from kindergarten through high school.
Okay.
Just a lot of times it was long-term subs and
Okay.
and that kind of thing. And then when we came back here, or when we came up here for the first time, Mike, our youngest, was in kindergarten. So I decided, so I should back up a little bit. As we were moving around, we were also having more babies every place that we went. And so I didn't teach while they were all at home. But once Mike went to school, then that's when I went back and started teaching. And so I did do a couple of long-term subs at North Kitsap. But when we came back in '84, CK is the one that called, and in fact, it was the day before school started. You'll love this, Brittany.
Oh, no.
I get this call from Larry Zickler, and he said, hey, could you come open a 4th grade classroom for me tomorrow?
Open. Be the teacher.
Be the teacher for the,
Ooh.
yes. Oh,
Wow.
Sure, I can do that.
Oh, you said
I can-
yes. Good job.
So, of course, I hustled myself right over then, and
Yeah.
fortunately, there was a great gal that was also going to be teaching 4th grade right next door to me, Ruthie Brooks, and she was just a godsend. She just helped me get everything set up and showed me where everything was, and so.
Oh, my goodness.
And then from there, I went to Cougar Valley and opened that school. It was the new tech school in the district, and I taught 3rd and 4th grade. We did a loop where we
Oh,
kept
yeah.
the students for 2 years,
Yeah.
and I really loved that.
Yeah.
That was
That's such
just
a helpful
great.
model. I hear really good things about
Oh, I think it's absolutely the best. When we started 4th grade, we were a whole quarter ahead of where we normally would be, because we didn't have to go through all that first month of getting acquainted and
Right.
hear the rules and blah, blah, blah. I mean, first day of school, hey, how are you? Okay, open your books. We're ready to go.
Yeah, your cohort.
Yeah.
Did you do that a couple years in a row? A couple
Yes.
cycles at least?
Yes, I did that the whole time I was at Cougar Valley, was
Okay.
do the looping. Yeah, so,
That's really neat.
yeah.
And for the kids, they know you. and
Well, you know, that was one of the things that I hadn't really thought about, but that first loop, then when we had parent conferences, the beginning of 4th grade, parents talked about what a wonderfully relaxed summer they had, because the kids knew where they were going to go, who their
Right.
teacher was going to be,
Yeah.
if their friend was going to be in the room with them, and all of. She said there was just no anxiety about school at all. So I thought, oh, that's a good
That's something
plus.
there. Yeah.
And especially since at Cougar Valley we had a lot of military families. And so for them to have that stability of
Right.
the same teacher in two years was really a benefit for them.
Yeah, that was my experience in 3rd and 4th grade.
Oh,
And it's the only teacher's name that I can remember from elementary school.
yeah,
'Cause
I
you had
mean,
a
we had her
loop.
for 2 years, yeah, and she was awesome.
yeah.
I do also recall it was strange. I was in a public school, and must have been around Easter, but we were eating ice cream sandwiches, and she told us the Jesus story
Oh,
in public school.
oh.
And I've kind of tried to relive that a little bit the last few years, going, how was that possible back then? But it must have. But yeah, we learned about that Jesus, was the Messiah, and then he came and he died on the cross and he rose from the dead. And
Oh, my
I don't know if she ever got in trouble for that, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Kid just asked and then
Yeah.
came up organically.
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I distinctly remember that moment. But that kind of leads into. We asked this to Peggy Templeton when we were talking to her as a teacher, and I'm always just curious as to, especially in the public schools, how you kind of find that intersection between your faith and this job that you can't really talk about it.
Right.
Like how do you find a good kind of space where you're, I don't, yeah,
Yeah.
that's an open-ended question, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is definitely something that you have to consider. And I felt like I could teach my values without a label on them as being Christian. But just basic, I had a one word classroom rule, and it was respect. And it just, everything else fell underneath that. And so, I could kind of share my values that way.
right.
But it was always also interesting, in fourth grade, it's your Washington State year. And so we would always, I had a fairly big unit on the indigenous Native Americans, and the every culture has their own group of stories, and how they learn about things is through the stories. And there are so many cultures that have a flood story. And so we were doing that and talking about the flood and what they believed and all of this stuff. And I remember having this little boy that raised his hand. He said, "That sounds a lot like Noah." And I said, "Oh, what do you know about Noah?" And so since he had brought up the subject, that opened it up, and we could talk about it and talk about, then I talked about the Bible and how it has our culture stories in there too. And so you just kind of find ways that you can fit it in, but you know that there's a line you can't cross.
Right.
So
Yeah. Was that hard for you to not cross that line?
Since I had always gone to public schools and had always taught in public schools, it was pretty ingrained.
Yeah.
And so I never felt like it was an imposition.
Right.
It was just one of the things I knew I had to be careful about.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Kind of boundary line.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So.
Is there ever a moment? Was there ever a moment that maybe pops into your head often about where you noticed God, or God showed up in your teaching specifically, like where you can,
I can't think of one specific thing, but he's just been an integral part of my life, and I feel like you just have to live that life.
Yeah.
Whether you put labels on it or not.
Right.
I always think of the song, "They Know We're Christians by Our Love." And I felt like by loving my students, for some of them, that was the only love they got during the day.
Yeah.
And they didn't always go home to the best circumstances, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Is that, I mean, teaching does still seem to be a part of your life, even if you've retired from the conventional classroom sense.
Right.
So whether it's teaching, working with youth, I mean, how is that still staying active in your life right now?
I think we were talking about passion, different passions that you might have. And I think this passion that I've developed for this Hood Fjord project is one of those things, because when I was teaching about Washington, I learned so much, and I just feel like the geographical features that we have a live volcano. We have a temperate rainforest. There are only 7 temperate rainforests in the world, and we have the largest. Starting from here, it kind of trickles down to the northern end of California. But a temperate rainforest is really a pretty rare thing, and the mountains we have, and just, I think that's part of the reason that I've become this passionate about recognizing that body of water is not a canal. It's not man-made.
Yeah.
It is glacially formed, and the only fjord, you're going to get me going here.
Yeah.
That's great.
The only fjord on the west coast of the United States, the contiguous, Alaska has a couple of 3 or 4 fjords up
Yeah.
there, but it's just such a singular thing that we have. And I think it has also brought out my belief in a creator.
Sure.
You can't look at all of these natural resources that we have. I believe in science totally,
Yeah.
but nobody is able to tell me where that first Douglas fir tree came from. Was there an original seed that you can't look at what we have here out our windows every single day and not believe in an ultimate creator.
Yeah.
It's just and I think that has really renewed and reinforced, strengthened my faith, because you can't look out your window
Yeah.
and not be awed
Yeah.
by what you see out there. So, I think it was, part of what I learned teaching
Yeah.
that still motivates me today.
Yeah.
Just last night was a perfect example because it was such a cold and dreary gray day all day long. But about 9:15 last night, there was this huge, it wasn't an orange sunset, but it was a huge bright light. Did you see it outside your house too?
We saw it, yeah.
And it reflected and was reinforced in the water. Oh, it was just spectacular. And you think, oh, what gloomy gray day.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Yep. It erases all of that.
Exactly.
Doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, you've kind of found a passion for, you've a newfound passion of teaching the state about its own. What's the right term for
Geographic.
geographic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Features,
Some
yeah.
creation, creator in the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, I have to thank my youngest son, Mike, for getting me off the dime because he's the one that said, there's a link and set me to the board on geographic names in Washington. So, and then when he was out here in April, I had all those sheets of signatures and things like that I'd gathered, and I had scanned all of them, but he figured out how to make it all into one document and get it all sent off. So
Oh my goodness.
I'm hoping, in fact, one of the things I have on my to-do list is to check, because there's a fellow I've been dealing with that's on the board, and when we sent it all in April, he said their next meeting was May, but their agenda was full.
Okay.
So August is going to be the next
Oh, wow.
meeting. They meet every 3 months.
Okay.
So, but they also, when I first started looking on the website, it said if you submit an application, it almost always takes a minimum of a year before they make a decision.
Okay.
So,
Oh wow.
yeah, we've got a ways to wait to
Oh.
be patient. And
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough lesson to learn.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
That's so exciting to have
Yeah.
everybody rally around. If it
Yeah.
figuring out how to change something into PDF or a document, like
Right.
Yeah.
and then rally
Yeah.
support for signatures.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
exciting, if anything.
Yeah,
Everyone's been
we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see where
Yeah.
it goes. But again, it's it's such a rare thing to have and to not recognize it.
Yeah.
And so many people that have lived other places, for example, California has tons of canals,
Right.
and they said, this doesn't look like a canal to me.
Yeah.
It's very
No.
different, yeah,
Yeah.
It isn't.
than the very posh canals that you have. Yes.
Yes.
Very true. It's a wild canal.
Yeah.
Wild
So
fjord.
I'm hoping that the name I suggested was Salish Fjord because, they named part of the Puget Sound Salish Sea, and it empties into the fjord.
Huh.
So we'll see.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's a cool project to.
Yeah, it's
work on
really been fun to work on. And
Yeah.
yeah, kind of keeping me out of trouble. Not always, but
I know I'm inclined to ask what other trouble would you be in, but we don't have to go there.
The orchestra would be next, right?
Oh.
Yeah. How did you get involved in so for people that don't know, you're the president of the board for the Poulsbo Community Orchestra. How did that, number one, why? Do you love music, that kind of music? And then second, how did that happen?
well, I don't know, to tell you the
Okay.
truth, because I got this call from Blake Yarbrough, who was the previous president, to see if I would be interested in joining the board. I have no idea where he got my name, but I said, well, I love coming to the orchestra, but I don't know anything about an orchestra.
Okay.
And so at the third board meeting, Blake announced his retirement and he was leaving. And everybody looked at me and
Really?
I said, what?
The third meeting.
I said, I don't know anything about an orchestra. And they said, yeah, but you run meetings. I said, well, yeah, I can do that. I don't know anything about what I'm supposed to be doing, what the business is. But and Blake said he would stay on for a year and kind of be my mentor for the first year, which was really wonderful because he and Steve Swan were the two founders of the orchestra.
Wow.
And so somebody just pushed me into the deep end and no life preserver.
Yeah.
There you go.
Did you find,
Wow.
I feel like whenever I've been thrown into a situation like that, at least in the last 10 years, I've needed to go, okay, I don't know what to do. And so you just got to trust in God. Did you find yourself like constantly going to prayer and during that first year?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just said, you put me here.
Yeah.
Help me out.
And how long have you been doing it?
I believe this is my third year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they 3-year terms? How does that work?
Well,
Or as long as you want?
Yeah. I haven't. Yeah. I don't know that there's a specific end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there might be.
Wow.
But and it's really been kind of fun because it's given me a whole new part of the community, and I do love music. I've always loved music, but and I'm so impressed with the talent of this group. They are just remarkable.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
who
it's been
alone
fun.
from our community is part of it? I know.
Yeah.
Sherry Paulin
Yep.
is actually she's
She's
the
the
one.
treasurer, isn't she?
Sorry.
She's the treasurer, right?
No,
Oh.
she's on the board now.
Yeah, she's not. I thought that was her title, though, wasn't it?
No,
Okay.
she's a director.
She's a director. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe she will be. Sherry, if you're listening.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who
that's
knows?
right. That's right. But actually, Sherry is a wonderful graphic artist, and so she has done great things. She designs like the graphic we had for our last
Yeah, that was
concert,
lovely.
and she does our programs for
Huh.
us. So yeah,
Oh, very cool.
she's really great. But she was the one that really introduced me to the orchestra,
Huh.
and just invited to come to the concerts and stuff. And then Grace
Yep.
is also part of it, and Misha
Yeah.
Lester
Right.
is she
Right,
plays
that's
also.
exciting.
Yeah.
Is this also her first year too?
This, I think, was her first year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's
Actually-
So
so 2 violas, Grace and Sherry, and then Michelle's a violin.
Okay.
right,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
We got to get David on the French horn in the group.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Yeah, you should.
Barb.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. We just talked with him.
Was that last week?
Last week,
Yeah.
and I mean, apparently he did like competitions and stuff in high school.
Symphony.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Yeah, talk with him
you
sometime.
should.
But, you know,
You're hard to
his
say no. I
involvement.
feel like you'd be hard to say no to. So yeah,
David has his own story with that.
he does. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That's good information to have.
Has this inspired you at all to, I mean, do you play an instrument? Did you, or sing?
I played piano, took piano lessons when I grew up, and I'm old enough that every elementary teacher had to know how to play the piano because there was a piano in every classroom, and you were the music teacher.
Oh.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Make that connection.
So, but that is no longer the case anymore.
No,
Thank you.
But you still can play piano to get by.
I can, but I haven't. I gave my piano to my granddaughter many, many years ago, so no. And I played bells, played in the church bell choir for a number of years, and fell on my shoulder, and it doesn't hurt. I can do this, but I can't do this for an hour.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's true.
that's
I
why
haven't
ever
thought
so
of that.
often I've filled in. Cindy Olmsted gives me a call. We need you to play one bell. Okay, I can do that.
Gotta have your parameters.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true. That repetitive motion.
Yeah.
That would definitely.
Yeah, and I played the beginning of the bass clef, so those are the bigger bells, of course.
Okay.
And and so Cindy was saying, well, you could move up and play smaller bells, and I said I could, but my brain can't.
Huh. Yeah, things I don't understand.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So
this might be a little bit of a loaded question. I don't know. But what has it been like for you to kind of watch the church transform and change over the last 46 years? Has it been exciting and interesting and yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
it has been. I honestly can't imagine that I could have survived without this church. And yeah, it has been such a loving, supporting place.
Yeah.
Even today, not being Sunday and coming for service, but just walking through the doors, it just fills me. And yeah, I often say to myself and remind myself, because after I lost Jim, I went through all of the why questions.
Right.
And heard a voice in my head say, I never promised it would be easy, but I did promise to always be with you. And that has just sustained me. But yeah, it is interesting to see the progress and growth and changes within the church. But I don't feel like it's ever left the path. The message has always been the same. The mission of supporting and serving the community has always been the same. But people change,
Yeah.
and the direction changes. I've never felt bad that we were on the wrong track at all. I think we've really been blessed with leaders that have truly brought the Holy Spirit with them. And yeah, so Yeah. I don't know if that answered your
It does,
question
yeah.
or not, but
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah.
There's a witness to that. To maybe, call back to Tyler's sermon yesterday. Can I get a witness?
Yeah.
But the witness is the kind of long, like what Eugene calls the long obedience in the same direction,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see that through the people that have been here since the beginning, and the family kind of feel, the familial feel and love for each other, and you can tell that that's kind of been the driving spirit
Right.
since its inception, is that we
Yeah.
love each other.
Yeah.
We're all about Jesus, and we are a family. I think people that are new feel that.
Right.
The common thread when we had our last new members class was people really just love each other here, and it's so true.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
I think we have John Haberlin to thank for that, because I cannot remember any Sunday that his sermon didn't tell us that we were loved. And yeah, it's painted on the walls.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely is.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah, and what a simple reminder, but especially, I mean, we know to ingrain that in our youth, right? But then also as the adults coming in and they're transient also in this
Right.
community, but to be reminded of
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
yeah,
It can be such a simple thing to say, but
yeah.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was a time Tyler asked, when I was on session, and Tyler asked us to go out and visit other churches and just kind of bring back some impressions, and is there something that you saw that you really liked, and Peggy Iverson and I did some traveling around together, and we went to several different churches, and some small, some large, and there were a couple of churches that we went to and no one spoke to us. We came in, we got our bulletins, sat down, and not one person said a word to us. And I would hope that never happens here.
Yeah.
I can't imagine,
No.
especially people with like Betty Brownlee, who always knows if somebody's new.
Right. Yeah.
I always say, if you've been coming here for 6 months and I don't know your name, I'm sorry, but
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
but not Betty. She always
Very, very true.
yes
Yeah.
knows everybody, and is always very welcoming. As are, I think, the whole setup that we have at the front door for greeting is really very welcoming.
Yeah.
I know sometimes I have an inward chuckle because I feel like there's this unspoken, we're kind of in cahoots with each other, people that are greeting. It's like if you see someone new, it's like you give eye contact across the room and it's like, okay, I'm going to talk to them first, or don't bombard them. Like everyone's just kind of
Right.
aware.
Yeah.
You know, do we keep our ground? Like,
Yeah.
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 No,
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
Yeah,
And how
that's
good to also be involved, like, and see other church communities in action, and they have, right, their own gifts too, but then to come back to your home church and realize, I'm thankful for this. And
Yes.
yeah. And
Yeah.
also thankful, I mean, to go back to Ty's question about, your longevity in the community, to see this initial path and God's leading, and to still feel that it's grounded in that. And that's what it should all be about for sure, is Jesus. But I'm sure, like, there have to have been moments, as for everyone, that there's
Yeah.
frustrating times too, and there's a
Right.
struggle. And yet, you are
Yeah.
committed to a community. So we thank you for that too, because
Yeah.
there are so many individuals that look towards either those who have been here from the beginning, or just people that are, confident, willing to be pushed to the deep end and kind of figure out how they're going to float, and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
and just to learn from and live alongside intergenerationally. So that's a gift too. So we
Yeah.
thank you for that,
Yeah.
Barb. But-
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
there's nothing that I could give that is anywhere near what I've been given.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah. So the steadfastness of a lot of the people that founded the church, or a part of that kind of first few years, and the fact that they're still here, does two things for me. One, it's a it's kind of a breath of fresh air in this kind of new spirit of I'm going to go wherever pleases me.
Oh,
Wherever
You
I'm
know,
blown. Kind
wherever
of.
like music. I really like the music there, so I'm just going to go there. And then once that music stops being interesting to me, I'll go somewhere else. That's kind of the feeling of, unfortunately, the generation that I'm a part of. And so to kind of see this, just the steadfastness of the people here. So it's a breath of fresh air, but it also calls to mind the fact that even as we change as humans and our interests change and that kind of stuff, God is steadfast. Because the church has gone through a ton of different iterations.
yes.
There was a church that met in the in a school and then the fellowship hall and it had and then John Haberlin, who is this kind of preacher that would talk to you and have a
Yes.
conversation with you in the sermon.
Yeah.
And then you go to Jim Davis, who's this grand scholar. And then Lee Riley, who's really personable and interesting, and then Tyler, who's almost kind of a mix of those, but has his own, and is super poetic and
Yeah.
thoughtful and engaging. And I mean, I've only been able to sit under Tyler's pastorate, but the church has changed, but God has been steadfast and been with us through it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys do that kind of. You're a picture of that. You're a small
Yeah.
a glimpse of God's steadfastness.
Yeah, that's well said, Ty.
Yeah, I think it says a lot too that we have past ministers that are here
Yeah.
and they're comfortable being here.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And Tyler is not threatened
No. Yeah.
by any of that at all. It says so much for each of them how they are willing to be here and be an integral part of this church.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it just adds so much depth, I think, for all of us to
Yeah.
have all the different looks and sharing their knowledge and ideas with us.
Yeah.
That's great. And each of them adds their own spice.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's good.
that's really fortunate.
Yeah.
So
Well, if somebody came up to you in the Narthex, whether it be you're at the welcome desk, or you're just
That's true, because she
yeah,
is, right?
Yeah, you're one of
Sometimes you
our
are.
rotational welcome desk people. When we were thinking about that, we're like, okay, people with big smiles that are really warm and but really fun to talk to, and there are plenty of people that are in the church. But so whether it's at the welcome desk or just you're getting coffee or something, how might somebody start a conversation with you?
Well, a lot of conversations are started with the Mariners.
Okay, yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting question. There are several of us in the church that do a lot of social things together.
Yeah.
Some of us go to the Bremerton Community Theater. We have a small group that goes to Fifth Avenue. So
Oh yeah. Okay.
just what are you doing this weekend?
That's a good yeah.
You know, yeah.
Yeah.
Cindy Tomeo is great about getting everybody for the Tracy Marsh
Oh.
outdoor. They're going to
Okay.
start up again in I guess the end of this month, the
wow,
last
okay.
Tuesday of this month, or is it July? Cindy knows, but just
Yeah.
Some
those
outings,
kind of
excursions.
yeah. outings and yeah.
And maybe the fjord.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What
always
constitutes a fjord?
Yeah, her eyes just lit up if
Yeah.
you can't see that. So
Yes, yeah.
Talk
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, for
Good.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know there's so much more that we could have touched on. I mean, there's
Yeah.
the Maasai women's group. We have people. I
Uh-huh.
guess people could ask you about that too.
Yes.
Um,
I'm always eager to talk about that.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but thanks for
Yes, thank you,
Oh,
Barb.
taking
You're
some time.
welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for picking me.
Yeah.